Muriel Collins Barnett is a wealthy traveler who has it all and wants even more. She prefers the refined atmosphere, pampering, and personalized service of a luxury cruise. What goes on board is not always elegant. She's not the only one with desires, though she is the one who holds the purse strings.
There was not only a master-servant relationship, but there was a sexual relationship.
It's a cruise into the unknown regions of the human heart. It's a place of secrets, lies, and a cover-up for murder. Most people hit the high seas on a cruise to unwind, to break free from the shackles of their daily doldrums and lose themselves in the sun-sea spray of the open water. That was the plan for Muriel Barnett on her vacation up the Pacific coast to Alaska. A luxury cruise that spared no expense. But whether you reside in a lavish penthouse suite or stay below deck without a window, you never expect murder can occur in the throes of relaxation. But murders can occur anywhere at any time. The most puzzling are the random, spontaneous acts of killing. Murder without cause. These actions shake the foundation of society, appearing as crimes of opportunity, seemingly done because the killer could. Frisbee's actions, which take place within the span of an hour, change his life and Muriel Collins Barnett's life forever. This key hour affects not only how the court sees his case, but also leaves everyone wondering why he committed such a cold-blooded murder of his friend and employer, Muriel, in the first place. Muriel Collins Barnett is married to one of San Francisco's prominent lawyers, Philip Barnett.
This was a very wealthy couple in San Francisco, and they lived in a penthouse apartment in a building he owned in Nob Hill, which is the hoity-toity part of San Francisco where the very rich and snobby live. And they were rich and snobby.
Aside from being a well-respected lawyer, Philip is also a land developer, which helped bring his fortune to great heights. And part of that luxury is having their very own manservant named Robert Frisbee. Robert William Dion is born in Springfield, Massachusetts on May 5th, 1927. He grows up in a broken home without much money, and in his early teens develops a pattern of relationships with older men, on whom he is financially dependent.
Dwight Frisbee, a descendant of a wealthy family, meets Robert when Robert is just 23 years old. They become quite close, and when Frisbee adopts him, Robert takes his surname.
When Dwight Frisbee dies in 1958, Robert Frisbee inherits $160,000 and a house. He squanders his legacy within a few years. Shortly after the death of his adopted father, Dwight Frisbee, Robert Frisbee begins a romantic relationship with Daniel Kazakis, who is then in the construction business in the San Francisco area. Frisbee comes to live with Kazakis and his wife until the latter dies in 1977. Frisbee then meets Philip Barnett and was employed to work as Philip's personal assistant. Frisbee travels with Barnett when he is involved in cases in other cities.
It's about this time that Frisbee first meets Philip Barnett and comes to work for him. Frisbee is able to travel during this job and, of course, enjoy the luxury of the Barnett's fine home.
Robert Frisbee consistently exhibits a rare devotion to the Barnett family.
He was not just an employee, he was also kind of almost their son. He was their chauffeur, their secretary, the dishwasher, their social convener.
They may have thought they had it made, upper class, relying on servants to fulfill their every need, but time soon runs out for Frisbee's employer.
Philip Barnett dies in January of 1984. But instead of leaving his job, Frisbee stays on to serve his widow, Muriel Collins Barnett. He looks after her daily needs, including matters of business, driving her around. He is a companion whose presence allows her to enjoy her busy social life. But both he and his employer benefit.
In spite of Frisbee being 20 years younger, they ended up being quite close. He's a lot more than a servant to her. They have the same friends and they socialize together.
Because of his service, the high life is both theirs to enjoy.
Muriel Barnett is used to a life of luxury, and after the recent death of her husband, which left her with a substantial inheritance, that's not bound to change anytime soon.
Despite her advanced age, Muriel Collins Barnett is not content to stay at home. She's a woman who has larger and more expensive appetites than a domestic life can provide. She plans a luxury cruise trip to Alaska with Frisbee to make use of the money she inherited from her husband.
The idea was this might be the last great spectacular cruise, and so she rented the most expensive suite on this cruise ship.
Muriel is no stranger to the lavish life.
She's already traveled pretty extensively, but she wants to experience as much as she can while she's still alive.
On board, Muriel enjoys extravagance and exclusivity that only a select few enjoy. When they retired to their penthouse, their daily ritual was about to begin, as the ship set sail for home.
Every day about this time, Barnett and her manservant get together and make cocktails. They often drink together. Although he is a manservant, they are more like friends at this particular time of the day.
They packed cases of booze on board that ship.
Today's choice for the manservant to make is a French 75, which is a champagne-based cocktail.
Barnett doesn't come across as your average widow. She seems to be having a lot of fun with her companion, Frisbee. While Barnett and Frisbee seem to get along well, their relationship is not always easy.
She's a very demanding individual. She's used to being in charge. He works for her. She is his income source, so he has to kowtow to her every need. It's a very difficult position for him to be in, but it's the position he's chosen in life.
Even though Frisbee accepts that he's there to fulfill Barnett's every desire, there has to be a little kernel of resentment in him. He has a husband, his own home, and his own responsibilities back in San Francisco, and those are always put on hold whenever Barnett decides she wants to go somewhere.
When Robert Frisbee requests separate accommodations on the cruise, Barnett turns him down and insists he sleep in the bed beside her.
This is Frisbee's job to put aside his own wants and needs for Barnett's. It's something he's made a conscious choice to continue.
But Frisbee is the type of servant who is really enjoying this role. He gets to drink and party all over the world with this rich woman. While it's his job, it's also a very good position for him to have, and he benefits from the luxuries that she provides.
Even though Frisbee and Barnett are friends, it has to be a bit confusing at times for Frisbee. There's some blurred lines here between him being an employee and him being a buddy that she goes drinking with.
Any relationship has its ups and downs. What happens, though, sometimes is an employee might feel put down and start to feel some resentment, if one day the employer is their best buddy and then the next day totally ignored. It's probably not a good idea to develop a closer relationship, especially if that relationship goes hot and cold from time to time.
Little do the two luxury cabin mates realize, in this hour, their lives will change forever. Ultra-rich widow Muriel Collins Barnett sails in luxury on a cruise with her longtime manservant.
The idea was this might be the last great spectacular cruise, and so she rented the most expensive suite on this cruise ship.
After a pleasant day of sightseeing on land, they repair to their penthouse cabin for an hour's reset and their regular pre-dinner refreshments. But there are dangerous undercurrents at play along this voyage, and the residents of the penthouse will find that this hour will be fatally different. As the tenant of a 2,000 a night luxury room, Barnett is well known on board as a woman who expects to pay for and receive only the best of the best.
Like the cruise being top of the line, the champagne is top of the line also.
Muriel is a heavy drinker, and part of her luxury is drinking some of the best and most expensive alcohol. Frisbee begins to drink more while working for the Barnetts, which results in Frisbee developing an addiction to alcohol.
Frisbee tries to curb his excessive alcohol consumption. But in May of 1985, Muriel Barnett and he set off for a tour of Europe. But while in London, Frisbee has 2 grand mal seizures attributable to alcohol withdrawal, so they return to San Francisco. Doctors there tell Frisbee to stop drinking, and they prescribe Librium.
This works well for a while. Frisbee even starts attending AA.
But upon returning to work with Mrs. Barnett in July, he starts to drink again.
He must feel some pressure to keep up with his employer, who is a heavy drinker. This presents problems for Frisbee.
It's hard enough to try to stop drinking without having someone else who is a drinker constantly being around. The person who's still drinking may try to encourage to continue drinking, and that's always difficult.
Being Muriel's personal assistant gives Frisbee access to some of the world's luxurious alcohols.
She chooses the best in partners too. Her choice is a lawyer who is very wealthy and looks after her very well. Barnett has made very wise choices with his money.
Philip Barnett's substantial legacy is inherited by his wife. But had she predeceased him, the greatest residue of his estate would have gone to endow the Philip Barnett Chair in Trial Advocacy at the University of San Francisco Law School, from which he graduated in 1927.
Some of Philip Barnett's money is promised to Frisbee too for his years of service, but he can't access it yet. If Muriel Barnett had died first, Frisbee would have received $250,000. But now, in order to receive that money, he has to agree to take care of Barnett for the rest of her days. And this is a problem.
Frisbee is deliberately led by Barnett to believe that he is getting a legacy for his service. He realizes so that he still must be a service to her in order to fulfill this legacy. So life goes on for him at this particular time as is.
After Philip Barnett's death, his manservant Frisbee's time is now exclusively devoted to Muriel's needs.
But Frisbee has his own needs and his own household as well.
Robert Frisbee lives with his longtime partner, Daniel Kazakis, in an apartment next to the Barnett home on Chestnut Street. Kazakis, who retires from the construction business, moves on to selling imported goods before retiring altogether.
But Kazakis is a very unique fellow.
His partner, who was really the crackpot of all crackpots, his name was Dan Kazakis. He liked to call himself the Reverend Dan Kazakis, and he had a mail-order divinity degree and would wander around town wearing a a cross big enough you could crucify somebody on.
Now widowed, Frisbee sees to Muriel more and more, and this caretaking of Muriel takes him away from Daniel.
These cruises are major undertakings, and each one whisks Frisbee away from his own life.
Frisbee and his late employer's wife have developed kind of a codependent relationship. Not only do they still hang out together and work with each other in a way, but Frisbee also expects some sort of a payment or reward at the end of his service, and who knows when that'll come. And throughout all of this complicated relationship with his former employer's wife, Frisbee's battling alcoholism and taking Librium for it.
Despite his struggles with alcohol, Frisbee decides to keep working with Barnett. After all, time is on his side. He's only 59 and she's an 80-year-old who's drinking a lot. He hopes that it won't be too long before he can collect his legacy.
And it could be argued that Muriel Barnett's lifestyle is catching up to her. She lives as if she's a much younger person, unabashedly partying, drinking, and you would think it would catch up to her eventually.
October 10th, 1984. About 10 months after her husband's death, Muriel Barnett falls at home while drunk and sustains a neck fracture. She is hospitalized for several days.
While hospitalized and for a time thereafter, she is heavily medicated to ease the pain. When she comes home, Frisbee and a maid look after her.
After Muriel Collins Barnett has her accident, on October 16th, 6 days after the fall, and while on heavy pain medication, she executes a codicil, a document that outlines amendments to her will that leave $2 million to Frisbee.
This codicil is written by Frisbee, and Barnett's signature doesn't quite match her usual one. However, this could just be the result of her pain medications. The signing of the codicil is witnessed by Frisbee's longtime lover, Daniel, and a female friend.
Soon she is back to her lifestyle of the wealthy and privileged, drinking, partying, back on the boat, and Frisbee is trying to keep up with this elaborate lifestyle.
But today, after Frisbee imbibes, he finds himself unable to keep up as usual. He feels shaky.
Frisbee has a prescription for Librium, which treats alcohol withdrawal, anxiety, and insomnia. Of course, it's not to be washed down with alcohol, but that's exactly what he's been doing.
Librium is a sedative and hypnotic drug used to treat insomnia, anxiety, and withdrawal from alcohol and other drugs. This is certainly not a drug that should be mixed with cocktails. Side effects can include drowsiness, weakness, and blurred vision.
Frisbee decides a hot bath before going to supper will revive him.
After his bath, he has another French 75 and lies down on the bed. He hears Barnett enter the bathroom, but he falls asleep before she gets out.
While under the influence of both Librium and alcohol, Frisbee could become unconscious. He could also be completely conscious but have no memory of anything that he's done and not be aware of what he's doing.
Those would be the more usual symptoms.
The residents of penthouse number 6 rest for a time. At least, that is what the plan is.
But before supper, Muriel decides to tell Frisbee that there are some upcoming changes in their life that's going to impact Frisbee dramatically. In this hour, things go terribly wrong in penthouse number 6.
Muriel Collins Barnett boards a luxury cruise with her manservant Robert Frisbee. Frisbee was originally hired by Philip Barnett, a well-respected lawyer in San Francisco, and Muriel's husband. But after his death in 1984, Frisbee stays to look after Muriel.
After all, time is on his side. He's only 59 and she's an 80-year-old who's drinking a lot. He hopes that it won't be too long before he can collect his legacy. Frisbee has a prescription for Librium, which treats alcohol withdrawal, anxiety, and insomnia. Of course, it's not to be washed down with alcohol, but that's exactly what he's been doing.
This is certainly not a drug that should be mixed with cocktails. Frisbee could become unconscious. He could also be completely conscious but have no memory of anything that he's done and not be aware of what he's doing.
The residents of penthouse number 6 rest for a time. At least, that is what the plan is.
But before supper, Muriel decides to tell Frisbee that there are some upcoming changes in their life that's going to impact Frisbee dramatically. In this hour, things go terribly wrong in penthouse number 6.
Barnett has decided to change her will when they return to San Francisco. Now, this was a will that heavily favored Frisbee for his long, devoted years of service. Frisbee's known to be subservient, meek, and mild, but this news turns his world upside down, and it's delivered to him when he's under the influence of drugs and alcohol.
It's hard to say what was going through Muriel's mind. There was obviously a change in the relationship due to something that had transpired between her and her servant. He was a best friend, drinking with her, he trusted her, she trusted him. Then something happened, whether it was caused by her suspecting that he was trying to increase the benefit he was going to have upon her death. All of these factors are present in the case, so we don't know what caused her to start pulling away.
They've both been drinking cocktails freely that day, and he has added Librium, creating a dangerous mix with uncertain effect.
This is certainly not a drug that should be mixed with cocktails. Frisbee is ingesting Librium, the generic name for chlordiazepoxide, which is a sedative hypnotic benzodiazepine. This is normally an inhibitive drug, but sometimes there's a paradoxical effect and the person can actually become disinhibited, aggressive, and even dangerous.
Of course, it's not to be washed down with alcohol, but that's exactly what he's been doing.
This will prove to be a grave mistake.
Tempers flare inside the exclusive penthouse number 6, and for the very first time, servant and master look as though they are about to collide.
She tells him that she plans to eliminate the codicil that would give Frisbee millions and revert to the original $250,000 he was supposed to inherit after they returned to San Francisco.
With millions on the line, the timid Frisbee is pushed to the limit, and in his anger, he lashes out.
No one can imagine what goes on in one's mind when you've been a servant all your life, expecting to receive possibly $1 million or whatever the number is, which is going to set your lifestyle up after your service. When you realize that's over, something snaps. This situation has now turned into a confrontation between Barnett and Frisbee. In Frisbee's mind, he has to take action before they reach port, because she's obviously going to contact a legal professional and change the will, reducing his compensation that he's entitled to in his mind.
After all his patience and struggles and sacrifice, he must be enraged, saddened, feel terribly betrayed. When all these negative emotions combine with alcohol and alcohol withdrawal, there's bound to be a very bad outcome.
In Frisbee's mind, he has to take action before they reach port. So he's putting a plan together of how he's going to convince her. And I don't think there's any other convincing but a terrible end. He snapped and struck her with an alcohol bottle. Frisbee isn't able to kill her with one blow. This timid, mild manservant who has looked after this woman has to finish the job. He has to strike her 4 more times to ensure that she's dead.
And in a heartbeat, there is a murder to cover up. Frisbee has just killed his employer.
Alcohol mixed with Librium can bring about dizziness, drowsiness, and the inability to comprehend what's going on around you. It's possible that Barnett's killer doesn't even fully comprehend what he's done yet. The normally peaceful Frisbee may be dissociating now, allowing him to feel not present in the reality of what he's just done. He might feel detached from what's going on, like an outside observer, allowing him to function.
How angry do you have to be to batter an old friend to death? Frisbee is used to Barnett being in charge. Her superior attitude towards him is an annoyance, but it's something he's become accustomed to.
One can only speculate as to what the driving motive is behind these players in this particular case. You have the servant, who's worked with both the husband and the wife for many years. Promises were made all about money. They've not been followed up. But at the end of it, no matter how you analyze and cut this steak into pieces, the last bite is always about money.
But a long-hidden secret is revealed, one that could help detectives piece this crime together.
Frisbee harbors deep resentment towards both Mr. and Mrs. Philip Barnett, because it turns out that Philip Barnett, his original employer and Muriel's husband, was also his lover.
A wealthy widow informs the old family retainer that she is going to change her will and reduce his legacy when the ship docks at the next port. Their usually friendly relationship sours as they disagree about her will.
In Frisbee's mind, he has to take action before they reach port. So he's putting a plan together of how he's going to convince her. And I don't think there's any other convincing but a terrible end. He snapped and struck her with an alcohol bottle.
And in a heartbeat, there is a murder to cover up.
Frisbee's in a state of shock.
Frisbee has always acted like one of the family. He kept the secret that he was the longtime lover of his employer, Philip Barnett, and now Barnett's widow has been battered to death.
That was another odd little fillip in the case, that there was not only a master-servant relationship, but there was a sexual relationship between this overpowering figure of Philip Barnett and the kind of submissive, but yet charming Robert Frisbee. There, as he was in his later years, he approached Robert Frisbee and sought a sexual relationship with him, and of course Frisbee complied. He complied with everything the great man asked for. There was some dispute at the trial as to whether or not that relationship occurred, but the in-house maid testified there was no question about it. She'd seen them together.
However, this won't be a simple case to solve.
If there's a murder or a disappearance on a cruise ship, it would send a wave of panic amongst most of the passengers, especially if you're separated from your loved ones. You wouldn't know if it's them involved in the disappearance. Just the fact the ship is stopped in the middle of the ocean to do a search or to do an investigation would cause a ripple of concern to go through the entire passenger list. So it would be a major job for the crew of the ship to calm the passengers and actually keep them informed about what's going on as best possible when they don't really probably know what's happened.
Cruise ships have an onboard security department, and ships sailing to or from the U.S. must have at least one crew member trained in crime prevention. But cruise ships don't have a police force.
Onboard security on a cruise ship are responsible for the day-to-day activities on the boat. They're not trained criminal investigators.
At the point of this cruise, maritime law still made it clear that while at sea, no nation had the ability to come aboard a boat and investigate anything that had happened to one of its citizens. Today, only the United States has the right to conduct such investigations.
Frisbee is trapped in the penthouse with the body of his victim, not willing or able to accept responsibility for what he's done.
Trying to comprehend what had just happened, Frisbee suddenly hears a knock at the door. Nightly, the ship's butler, Michael, assigned to penthouse number 6, will attend them. It has become the habit with Muriel and Frisbee to receive canapes and caviar between 6:30 and 7 p.m. The butler is confused that no one is answering the door.
Michael hears some muffled activity behind the door of penthouse 6.
This isn't what he's accustomed to. He's used to two people anxiously awaiting their order.
The door opens, and he sees Frisbee, who does not look himself. He looks past Frisbee. Muriel Barnett is laying on a blood-soaked bed with blood splatter all over the room. She's obviously incapacitated. Frisbee panics. Michael runs to get help. Frisbee now has a moment before security arrives to make up his mind as to what he must do.
He leaves the crime scene and goes to the bathroom.
Frisbee has to think quickly. He's feverishly thinking, how can I get out of this? He can see that legacy slowly drifting away.
Soon, Michael returns, followed by two of the ship's stewards, and then soon after, the ship's captain and a doctor.
The ship's doctor examines the victim and ascertains that death occurred because of 4 or more blunt trauma blows to the forehead. They suspect the murder weapon was either a broken champagne bottle or a broken whiskey bottle.
A crowd of staff and guests gathers outside the stateroom, unable to believe what they're seeing.
So there's a fear factor that would spread through that entire ship, causing everybody to lock their doors, guard their loved ones closely, and not take any chances or go walking for a moonlight step on the deck at night because you worry about maybe it'll happen to me.
In the panic and confusion of this terrible scene, the ship's crew still never suspect Frisbee.
Frisbee is playing his part believably. He seems to be horrified, shocked, totally confused about what's happened to his boss.
They were not, I think, convinced themselves that he was the cause of Muriel Barnett's murder. And he did say, I don't know what happened, is what he explained to the ship's staff. I just don't know what happened. She must have fallen from the bed.
The ship's crew would know Frisbee. He's been on the boat with her many times, in all probability. They know he's friendly, polite, well-mannered. There's no reason to suspect him as being a suspect. But under the circumstances, he's the only logical one that has to be interviewed. They examine, contain, and wait for the ship to arrive at the next port of call, where they will contact the police authority to conduct the investigation.
The ship en route to San Francisco wires ahead, and the police will be waiting to investigate the crime scene.
It's the morning of August 21st. Inspector Klotz of the San Francisco Police Department boards the ship to investigate this murder.
Police find the bathrobe Frisbee wears after his bath has blood on it. They also discover a bloody towel in the bathroom sink.
And that's not all the incriminating evidence they find.
In Frisbee's wallet is a check payable to himself, drawn by him on Mrs. Barnett's account in the amount of $300,000. The check is torn from her checkbook out of order, with no entry on the stub.
Frisbee explains that Barnett told him in early August that she wanted him to spend part of the year with her in London, but he doesn't want to be separated from Daniel. He explains that the check was written to him as compensation.
Police are willing to bet that Robert Frisbee has yet more to reveal about the hour in the penthouse.
Evidence is piling up against Frisbee, but it makes no sense why he would conduct such a messy murder in front of the crew and obvious witnesses.
But prosecutors think they know the answer to what happened in the hour of the kill. Investigators surmise that it had always been planned to kill Muriel Barnett.
But Frisbee's still insisting that he's innocent. It's quite obvious, even to an unseasoned investigator, that Frisbee has both the motive and the opportunity to commit this crime. Authorities believe they have their man.
Police are willing to bet that Robert Frisbee has yet more to reveal about the hour in the penthouse.
Evidence is piling up against Frisbee. It's quite obvious, even to an unseasoned investigator, that Frisbee has both the motive and the opportunity to commit this crime. Authorities believe they have their man.
Robert Frisbee is charged with first-degree murder in California.
The Americans desperately wanted to prosecute the case in their own jurisdiction because it was a headline grabber. They proceeded to charge Frisbee with murder down there.
Since the murder takes place on a cruise ship on the water, there are some unexpected complications.
Throughout history, jurisdiction on cruise ships has been a major concern. If a crime occurs at night while the ship is moving, they can be passing through multiple jurisdictions, between islands, between countries, between international waters and sovereign waters. So determining a time and a place is extremely difficult on a cruise ship for crime. Once it's determined that the crime has occurred in that jurisdiction, in most cases, the trial or the prosecution, if there is one, has to go back to the jurisdiction where it occurred. This means extradition. It means a whole bunch of legal mumbo-jumbo that one has to go through to move someone across international lines back to that country.
U.S. federal prosecutors are not able to bring a murder case against Frisbee, as it is shown the death actually occurs in Canadian waters. The murder trial must move to Canada.
The suspect has to go back to Canada for the trial, causing huge wrangling between countries and lawyers to try to either expedite it or stop it.
Robert Frisbee is extradited to Canada to face a jury for the murder of Muriel Collins Barnett. A new trial charging Robert Frisbee with the murder of Muriel Collins Barnett begins in British Columbia, January 12, 1987.
While in custody in San Francisco, Frisbee writes a novel.
He wrote a kind of autobiography which ended with the death of Muriel Barnett, whom he was ultimately alleged to have murdered, beaten over the head with a champagne bottle in the penthouse suite of this cruise ship. He rather naively didn't realize that anything he was writing could be seized by the authorities in Canada.
Some damning passages are written in Greg's shorthand.
He ended that book saying, "Tonight she must die." You can imagine that the prosecution seized on that.
These passages make a big impression on the jury.
When it came to his being cross-examined about this line, "Tonight she must die," there was a long pause in court where he said, really couldn't come up with an answer. He said, "I cannot read my own shorthand." And that certainly didn't help him.
The codicil created while she's on heavy pain medication, leaving over $2 million to Frisbee, also works against him. But many look to the eccentric Daniel, believing that he's the one that pushed Frisbee to this desperate direction.
He was the party that everyone believed, including the prosecution, including the defense, myself, who propelled Frisbee or persuaded him, nagged at him to do in Mrs. Barnett. And there was an issue as to whether or not the Reverend Dan Kazakis and Robert Frisbee conspired to have her sign a copy of a new will without her properly looking at it. He was under the spell of Daniel Kazakis, and who had some kind of hypnotic power over him, because there was no question about it that Kazakis was the person who was pushing him so hard to do her in, and that he somehow psychologically succumbed to that pressure when he was totally potted, and he was also taking Librium. That's a terrible mix. But that'd be pretty hard to prove that.
Whether or not this is Frisbee's idea or he bends to his boyfriend's wishes, he begins to write a story about how this money is going to be coming to him. He in turn issues a check in advance sold to his boyfriend, believing that once she is gone, they'll be able to quickly cash this check before the banks are notified of Muriel's death. He is foolish enough to write this into a story as if he's some kind of detective novelist, and the police are able to obtain these writings and prove that he's the motive. It's the money, it's him.
Even before he goes on the cruise, Frisbee writes a check to Daniel for $100,000, but Daniel doesn't deposit it right away. He waits until he learns of Barnett's death and then goes to the bank, who hasn't been informed yet of her death, and cashes the check.
Defense lawyer William Deverell says the government's case is riddled with reasonable doubt, and that Frisbee is too timid to murder anyone. And he did so in a state of automatism, unconscious, involuntary behavior induced by the combination of alcohol, Librium, and possibly sleepwalking.
The jury does not agree.
59-year-old Robert Frisbee is convicted in January 1987 of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without eligibility for parole for 25 years.
But incredibly, the killer still receives his inheritance.
The lawyers for Muriel Barnett's estate did not want to drag matters out over the will. They got him a settlement of a few $100,000, which basically helped pay his legal fees ultimately.
Robert Frisbee appeals the ruling, and it is reduced to second-degree murder, 10 years without the possibility of parole. This is a testament to how this quiet man flies under the radar. But he still doesn't get away with it. Muriel Barnett gets her justice.
It was the cover-up that was the evidence. What he did to try to cover up the murder was what painted a clear picture of what actually happened.
It's truly tragic for everyone involved that Robert Frisbee wanted this money so much that he was willing to kill for it.
And in the end, he never receives the freedom that he truly sought.